On this episode, we have my good friend, digital nomad and sales copywriter Sam Burmeister joining us. Sam is the founder of Nomad Copy Agency and Copy on Demand. Every business that Sam writes for gets copy that sounds like them but converts better, and I can attest to this from experience. Sam is really a wealth of knowledge when it comes to messaging, sales, and branding, and on this episode, you're going to get to hear a little bit of her story and some of her best business advice for reaching six figures in your online business. Then we're going to play a really fun and informative game of Pass or Smash Online Business Rebrands Edition. So keep listening. I think you're going to love this one. Welcome to the Six Figure Brand Podcast, where each week we're pulling back the curtain on what it really takes to build a six-figure business as an online service provider. I'm your host, Morgan. I'm a branding expert, online agency owner, mom of two, and military spouse, and I'm obsessed with helping entrepreneurs like you understand the ins and outs of branding so that you can use it to grow your business without sacrificing your sanity. Whether you're just starting out or focused on scaling, we're diving into everything you need to build a profitable and sustainable online business. Let's get to it. Welcome to our first guest episode of the Six Figure Brand Podcast. I'm so excited to have my good friend Sam of Nomad Copy Agency here. She is a sales copywriter and digital nomad. So she is going to share a little bit of her story, and then we're going to play a fun game that hopefully will give you some good info about things to watch out for when you rebrand by looking at some bigger businesses. So thanks for being here today, Sam.
I'm stoked to be here. This is going to be fun.
I was trying to think before we hopped on here, like, how did we meet? And I can't remember. I feel like we've just been in each other's worlds forever. I'm pretty sure it was AMC, maybe.
I think you're correct. And what's funny about that is a couple episodes ago, you mentioned the best and worst investments in your business. And one of the best investments being free mastermind programs versus the paid ones. And I think we met through a free mastermind program 5 years ago.
Yeah, it's been a super long time. So it's been super cool to see our businesses kind of grow alongside each other. So for our listeners, can you give us a little cliff notes of who you are and what you do and kind of how you got into online business?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you mentioned, I'm a copywriter and a nomad. So I started Nomad Copy Agency so that there was no question about where I might be in the world because my previous corporate job, I was in corporate sales and they wouldn't let me go remote. And so when I recreated my life, I was I'm going to be remote and I want everybody to know it. So I guess to take a half a step back, I have degrees in marketing and international business. After college, I went into sales. So I was that corporate Amex girly, traveling quite a bit for work, closing big deals with CIOs and CTOs. So the tech nerds of the business world. And that's how I spent my time. And I wanted to continue to help people sell, but I didn't want to have to be on endless Teams meetings with executives. So back in 2019, I quit my last corporate job and started Nomad Copy Agency, where I now help people sell using their words on the internet.
I feel like you started being a nomad business owner before it was cool and popular, when you were my company wouldn't let me work remotely. And the landscape there has changed so much. That's got to be pretty wild for you to have had to work so hard to make this happen. And now you're everyone gets to work remote. What the heck, man?
Yeah. Well, yeah, because it wasn't, I think, 8 months after I quit my job that the whole company that I was working for went remote permanently. And I was man, if I had stuck around, I could have still had health insurance. Are you kidding me?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. In hindsight, though, I'm sure that you made the right choice.
100% worth it. Wouldn't change a thing.
Cool. So speaking of, one of the things that has always struck me about you is how you're super smart about diversifying your income and not only relying on your business to make you money. Because as an online business owner, there are good months and there are bad months. And I don't really think that goes away no matter how much money you're making. I think even if you're $1 million business, you still have months here and there where you're oh boy, that wasn't so great. So can you tell us a little bit about how you started diversifying your income?
Yeah, for sure. So I think in the online space, it can be really isolating because we work alone. And so we tell ourselves stories and then we believe them. And one of those stories that I hear people project quite a bit is that you can't have a part-time job, or if you're working for another person, that you're not really an entrepreneur. You're not really a business owner. So I'm super transparent about when everything started to open up again in like 2022, I went and got a part-time job, not necessarily because I needed that income, but I went and started working at a winery. When I'm in the US, I'm based in California, and I got a part-time job working in wine so that I could learn about something that interests me and also like talk to people because I spent a lot of time alone. A while after that, I had an opportunity to work in sales for another company and learn a lot about startup email marketing. So I went and did that full time for a very short time. It ended up not being a good fit, and that's okay too. And also, I'm a real estate investor. So my partner and I own several duplexes in my hometown, and we've diversified our income through that as well.
Yeah,
So
that's
I don't know
great.
if that's financial advice, but that's been like my like weird and winding road because we don't just have to be one thing. And I think oftentimes we think if Morgan's not only a designer, is she a designer? And I just don't think that that's valid. I think you can be a lot of things at the same time.
Yeah, and I think too, for me at least, like, so you're in your corporate job, and in my case, I was like doing the side hustle thing,
Mm-hmm.
and I worked so freaking hard to make this my full-time job that then the idea of like, oh, this might be an interesting thing just to do part-time for fun, or maybe I should invest some money over here, or like expanding beyond that feels a little like imposter syndrome-y for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So I think
Yeah.
that's cool. And I also am pretty risk averse. So I like the idea of having the built-in safety nets and backup plans and stuff. And I just think that it's so much work to build an online business that a lot of times we get kind of like tunnel vision and that's all we can think about. That makes sense at the beginning. But I think once you get to a place where you're comfortable doing things like investing or trying out new things or what have you, it's a smart move for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think investing is just a whole different ballgame when you're an entrepreneur. And a lot of the advice online about how to invest as an entrepreneur is also written by people who have made millions of dollars in their businesses. And it's really hard to go from like, I started this as a side gig or whatever your story is. And then being like, there's a realistic factor of like, but can I max out my what is it, an individual IRA this year? Like that, we'll call it passive income, but you don't get to touch it for another 40 years. And it's a really big dent to start investing in that way too. So yeah, I agree. I think there's just a little security blanket of like knowing that there's multiple levers to pull. And I think too often it's like, well, do you have a course in digital products and done for you services? And we think of those as our levers. It's like, what if we also thought outside of our businesses a little bit? This is everybody's permission to do that.
Yeah, I love that. And you can start small. I know I was always in the headspace of like, oh, I just put whatever percent into my 401k that my employer matches and never thought about anything beyond that. So it's a lot to wrap your head around. So I would just encourage people to start small. Okay, so you work with lots and lots of 6 and 7 figure businesses. I saw you sent out an email the other day that you wrote launch copy for someone and they had the $1 million launch, which I thought was phenomenal testimonial for you. What is something, or maybe a couple things, that people who have attained that level of success that you see them all having in common?
They believe that they can. Like, it's never a surprise when somebody reaches their first 7 figures. It is always, there's something behind it where they say, well, yeah, because I worked really hard for this. Or, yeah, because we spent 6 months getting 2,500 people on the wait list. I didn't launch until I had a wait list. Or something. Like, we all have launches that do better than we expect. We all have launches that do worse than we expect. And that's the other thing, is that they've had both before they reached those 7-figure launches. So I think it's a combination of hard work, believing in yourself, and a heck of a lot of perseverance, which just sounds like every freaking personal development book you've ever read, doesn't it? Now that I'm saying it out loud.
You just work harder. Everything will work out for you. Yeah, but I think there's something to that one of my huge pet peeves is like, oh, it must be nice, or you're so lucky, or whatever. And I don't really ever like respond to stuff like that, but I always am like, I'm like least lucky person in the world. All of the good things that have happened to me have been very much on purpose. And it sounds like that's kind of what you're getting at, of like, they're not just hoping things will work out. They're putting in the work and they're being smart about it. And it takes a long time.
Yes. And that being smart bit is like not sexy. It is funnels and data and realizing that you have to pivot your entire like lead acquisition strategy because your funnel and your freebie aren't attracting good fit clients, and having hard conversations with yourself. Like, that smarter bit is not fun. It looks a lot like crying in the shower sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. And being willing to course correct. It's like, hey, this didn't work out. How can I fix it? Or like, maybe I need to not 100%, but like 90% burn my business down and start over.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it does mean burn your business down and start over. And that's where you and I a lot of times have these conversations with people, because it's like, how do we rebrand? How do we change your messaging? How do we change the vibe that you're giving your...
Yeah, exactly. And I say all the time, business is the biggest personal development project that you will ever get yourself into. I was not at all prepared for that whenever I started a business. I remember the like week or 2 weeks following leaving my 9 to 5, just having every emotion in the world come out of me and being like, what is happening? And now I'm like, okay, I get it now. And I warn people about that whenever they're getting ready to like a transition like that. So I think it's, oh, what is it? Every overnight success is like years in the making. I think that is a good summation of your point. Like, it's not going to happen right away. But if you have the right people around you and you pay attention to what's working and not working and adjust accordingly, it's attainable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you mentioned when you and I work with people on like rebrands, which we've been lucky to work on several projects kind of in tandem with each other. We both understand, and I think a lot of our listeners understand, that you really need copy and design to get the job done. However, that's not always realistic for somebody to invest in both of those concurrently. So what advice would you give to somebody who's in that position of like, I have to pick one and I want to make sure I'm still doing them both?
I mean, I think the obvious answer here is to surround yourself with a designer and a copywriter. And the best way that you and I both have to do that is we have very similar programs. If somebody said, like, this is my budget and I don't know which to do, I feel like my advice would be like dip your toe into both, with my copy on demand and your 6-figure brand society. And for Liz, she did not tell me to say this. This is just seems like the most obvious answer of like, but what if you could have a designer in your back pocket while you do it and have a copywriter in your back pocket while you do it? And they're going to give you the building blocks and the tools and the feedback so that you can do it yourself until someday. So you build iteration 2.0. And then when you're ready for 3.0, hopefully 2.0 has made you so much money that then that's when you outsource. Because like you said, it's copy and design, not copy or design. So to choose one over the other just doesn't seem responsible, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think for some people, it can come down to like technical ability too. If they're like, I need a website and I just like can't do that myself, then maybe you shift more money that way and kind of try to DIY some of the copy, or vice versa. If you're like, I know my way around Squarespace well enough, but I really suck at writing words, then maybe you go in the other direction. So I think there's like happy medium for sure. I also personally have been kind of grappling a lot with, how do I know when I should outsource something completely and when I should learn how to do it myself? And I think there's a lot of value in learning at least the bare minimum basics of both of these things so that you're not in a position where you're like, I can't launch my thing because I need to hire a designer and a copywriter and they're $5,000 each and I don't have.
Yeah. 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 And it is tough to know when. And I think the other thing too is to get this far in business, every one of us knows how to write. And if you've sold anything, you know how to sell. So I think the perception is that you would need to hire a designer because you can figure out how to write it yourself. ChatGPT is a click away, but that design feels more out of reach for a lot of people. And I think you would agree that like, that's fine until you hire a designer and they have to design around copy that doesn't speak to the ideal client. So that's where it's just kind of like truly this just cycle of chicken and egg.
It's so funny too, because truth be told, if I had to pick between the two, like absolutely had to, I would tell somebody to invest in copy. And I think that's because I've had enough experiences where clients DIY their copy, or before the days of ChatGPT, they would buy a template or like copy someone else's website or whatever, like just do kind of a hack job with their copy, to be blunt. And then I would make them a really beautiful sales page or website or whatever. And they would be like, why is nobody buying my thing? And want to blame it on the design. And I'm like, I can't, like, you can only put so much lipstick on a pig.
Exactly. Yeah, 1,000%. That's a great way to put it.
Yeah. So yeah, that's great. And that was totally not planned. But Sam and I both do have great memberships for people who are looking to flex their copy and design skills. So we'll talk more about Sam's membership before we wrap up. Okay. So I'm going to pass it off to you to have kind of the host seat, and you have some quick rapid fire questions. We're going to play a little game of Smash or Pass.
Yes. So, as we all know, if you're listening to this podcast, you know how important branding is. And there are branding trends that too many people follow, I think, in my opinion. So, Morgan, I'm going to ask you smash or pass questions, rapid fire, and these are specifically visual branding things that we tend to see that are either they've come, they've gone, and for those who aren't familiar with smash or pass, smash means like, yes, absolutely, keep it, love it, and pass means we would pass it over without a second thought. So, Morgan, smash or pass script fonts?
Ooh. Smash, if they're done right. Too much
Fully
time.
center-aligned sales pages.
Oh, pass.
Monochrome brand palette, like color palette.
Pass.
Maximalist design.
Smash.
Okay. What about minimalist design?
Also smash.
Okay.
I think there's time and a place for both of them.
Using custom created AI generated stock images.
Pass. We can tell.
How many fingers does this image have on this person?
What language is that in the text box?
Yeah. Editorial style images.
Smash.
Dynamic scrolling.
Pass. It's distracting.
And finally, pop-ups.
I have not a whole podcast episode, but a portion of an episode coming out. It might already be out by the time this one airs about why you shouldn't sleep on pop-ups.
Pop-ups. Okay, interesting. I was going to ask you to dig into it, but instead the call to action is just go find that podcast episode. Fascinating. Okay. I love that. Yeah.
Is there any that surprised you?
I'm trying to think of one. It was right at the beginning. Obviously, center-aligned sales pages pass, for sure. I think it's the monochrome brand palettes of they just seem to be everywhere right now where the whole website is green, but different shades of green. And
so this is a little bit of a tangent, but not really. People all the time are must be so fun to draw pictures and be creative and get to be an artist all day. And I have internally struggled with the fact that I don't feel like I'm necessarily the most artistic, creative person in the world. So how the heck did I end up as a designer for a job? And I think the answer that I land on is design is really more about problem solving than it is about being an artist. There's fine art for that. I need to have an objective that I'm trying to achieve with whatever thing I'm being creative with. So I think the monochrome palettes are pretty, and if you're only worried about making things pretty, then they're awesome. I don't love them because I think you need an accent color. What color are you going to make the button so that it sticks out on the page if everything is green?
Yeah, I hear you there. And that's one thing I love about sending my copy clients to you or sending my copy to you, knowing that you're going to be the one to design it, is that I agree, design is pretty. And that's actually what the top of my website says, is design is cool, but copy converts. And design plays such an important part. And I think when people are shopping for a designer, one of the most important questions they can ask is, what is your sales experience? What do you know about sales psychology? Because I know when I hand copy to you that it's going to be designed in a way that is user-friendly, in alignment with sales psychology and human behavior. Yeah,
and I think too, just in our culture, it's a taboo for us to ask questions about money, which I think is dumb, but that's a whole separate episode. But I recently had a new client who I just kicked off their project yesterday, actually. We had done a sales call. They were talking with a couple other designers, not really sure what direction they wanted to go, sent me an email and was could you tell me a little bit about what results your clients have seen, tangible results? And I had a good answer for him because you and I worked together on my sales page and we included a bunch of that stuff. So it was great. And he ended up hiring me. And he said, that's one of the reasons is because I was one of the only designers who could answer that question, who wasn't just oh, well, their website looks great now. So what? And he's I'm trying to have a pretty website, but I'm also trying to make money.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So yeah. I think that's for anyone listening that's considering hiring a designer or a copywriter, it's okay to ask those questions.
It's 100% okay to ask those questions, should be expected, and also it's atypical for just design or just copy to be the thing that changed a launch. So you mentioned I sent out an email recently that one of my clients made $1.3 million in their like 9-day open cart. It was insane. But in that email, the body of that email was like, I probably can't do that because it's not just like hire me and I'll make you $1 million. First of all, that's illegal to say, nonetheless unethical. But that a lot of times somebody will have their sales page redesigned and the copy redone between launches. And they've done a ton of consumer research that informs the copy and design, and there's all kinds of things. So while you're talking numbers with your designer, it's probably also a red flag and potentially a made-up statistic if they're like, my clients X their launches when they work with me. Because it's like it's taking too much credit on one hand, and also there's not really any way to tell unless the client only changed the design between launches.
Yeah, there's always multiple variables. And like, I do think that there are a lot of instances where somebody only changes the design and it increases things, or only changes the copy and it increases things. But for you or I to say, oh, if you just hire me, it's going to make you have a 7-figure launch, like that's not real. So if anyone's telling you that, run the other way.
Yeah,
But
1000%. Speaking of recent launches, we've seen a lot of recent rebrands that I think we want to talk about.
Yeah, we have. So there's one in particular that just really like, I can't get out of my head that I was like, oh, this would be fun, a fun game. So we're going to continue with the Pass or Smash theme, but we're going to go a little deeper and talk about some businesses in the online space that have rebranded within the last like year or so. And I'm going to give some kind of feedback from a design perspective. Sam's going to do the same thing from a copy perspective. And then we will say Pass or Smash to each one. So, okay. So the first one that we want to talk about is Kit, formerly ConvertKit.
Mm-hmm.
So they, I want to say like towards the last half of 2024, rebranded. Now they're Kit. I can't stand the name, but I'll let you make your comments on as far as messaging goes. But they rolled out a whole new visual brand, a new business name, obviously, which is sometimes and is not always a part of a rebrand. I kind of like shifted their messaging. They're, from what I gathered, at least, they're trying to like open themselves up to have more services in addition to just email marketing down the line. So kind of trying to expand like their product suite a little bit. And in my research that I was doing to prep for this episode, I also learned that they had like a failed rebrand back in 2018 that I was super fascinated by and did not know. So they were going to rebrand to Seva. I'm not sure how you pronounce it. In 2018, they like announced that we're doing this thing at their Crafted Commerce. They, I guess, didn't get great feedback. There was like some issues with being able to like secure the domains and stuff. And people were like, I don't know how to say that. I don't know what it means. And just were like really resistant to the change. And so they pretty quickly were like, never mind, just kidding, which I thought was wild for them to so, because we talked about to reach those like 6 and 7 figures, you have to really be willing to admit whenever you made a misstep and kind of course correct.
Mm-hmm.
And this was just like a mind blowing example.
Yeah, I had no idea. And to be fair, that was right around the time that I was entering the online space. So it's not like I was caught up in it, but it's wild that it's not talked about because so often a failed rebrand and like a solid backtrack can really mess up a brand's overall credibility.
Yeah. Yeah. So I thought that was super fascinating. And from my perspective, there's a handful of names in the email marketing space. I recently moved from another service to ConvertKit because I knew so many clients that had like an amazing time with them. I was working with you on really ramping up my email marketing strategy. And so it was kind of a no-brainer because they've built that brand recognition and everyone knows that like they're kind of the best of the best. So let's look at their before and after. Okay, so this is kind of, I'm sharing my screen. So for anyone listening, sorry that you can't see, but we'll kind of try and talk you through what we're looking at. This is their before page, right? So it's very like doodly, notebooky kind of themed. Their name is obviously ConvertKit. Colors are kind of like cream, lots of serif fonts, lots of like hand-drawn elements.
There's a lot of focus on their creators throughout. That's something that has always stood out to me is that they focused on creators through a variety of industries where like one of them that we could see on the screen is Mandy Moore, but then there's also like I remember being on this page one time and being like, oh, I follow that guy on Instagram. So it's like larger than micro influencers, but people who are influencers in different spaces. So it was all about like they had already started to liaise, as you had said, like they're kind of leaning more towards this like creation and whatever. They had already had that like for creators brand.
Yeah, I feel like they kind of leaned into influencers before influencers really were a thing, which was, in hindsight, very cutting edge. But let's look at some of their messaging. So, sustainable growth tools for creators. ConvertKit helps 600,000 creators like you work smarter, not harder, with email automation and monetization tools that work together to drive continuous growth. And then down here, it's very email centric. And then we're talking about, we mentioned coaches. We believe the future belongs to creators. Creators shape culture. Culture shapes worlds. Check out these stories, films, and sessions inspired by the creative process of artists, writers, musicians, and more. So I get a very like artist heavy feeling from this. We've got like some little music note illustrations. Would you agree with that?
Would agree with that. And I think too for listeners, the world that I came from, we were using other email marketing tools, including Salesforce, which if you're anywhere in the Bay Area, you've seen Salesforce Tower. Like it's the size of company that gets its name on buildings. Another competitor in the space would be HubSpot as a big one, and they produce a lot of really great data for businesses that are probably, I would say, like once they get to that 50 plus employee range. So ConvertKit catering towards creators. When you live in the creator economy, you think everybody's a creator. And I just wanted to add that for color that like this was very much catered to people like you and I, people who are doing it themselves and broadcasting to a larger number of people. It's like they really nailed the niche with that like user friendliness for the every person.
Yeah, that's a great point. So let's look at what they've got going on now. So now we've moved to a little more, I want to say like a techie feel, a kind of, to be honest, a little more similar to something like Salesforce. ConvertKit, I should have pulled up the stats, but has grown tremendously since their inception, but I would say in the last like 5 years or so. So we're now called Kit. We have this much more geometric, like clean sans serif font, blue, kind of an off-white and black look going on. And definitely still a huge focus on their creators, although I would say we're shifting more towards like content creators and entrepreneur type creators than artists and musician type creators. Is your brand and website feeling stale, outdated, and disjointed? If you're feeling a little called out, we should chat. Spect & Co is here to help you show up with more confidence and book more clients through personalized and strategic branding and website design. Anyone could design you a pretty logo, but our strategy-backed system has helped our clients triple their audience size, double their revenue year over year, and increase their rates by over 30%. If that sounds too good to be true, I promise it's not. Use the link in the show notes to book a free discovery call so we can chat about what strategic branding and web design could mean for your business.
That's definitely the vibe that I get as well. And then it's calling itself an email first operating system. That when we hear operating system, we think like iOS and like this, that email is a component rather than the focus. However, it's still saying that it's email centric.
Yeah. And I think like their next little section says build a business with purpose. And then talks about a creator who used social media and email to grow her following, and then has a handful of case studies and some stats and stuff. But I think, like we mentioned, that I can tell that there's another product launch coming sometime. Maybe not next week or next year, but they're going to be like, hey, we have this new thing that has nothing to do with email marketing. Yeah. And they're kind of trying to set the stage for that a little bit.
I want to point out two other things. Is that one, it seems like they're 1 foot in, 1 foot out. It's been over a year. Am I wrong? When did they announce this?
Let's see.
But they seem to be 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Like the above the fold on the homepage still says formerly called ConvertKit. And from a copywriting perspective and like understanding messaging deeply, something that you want to do as an entrepreneur or as the owner of a company is be really repeatable. For example, somebody was talking to me the other day about how they're purchasing some homes and they're not sure what to do. And I said, my real estate attorney. And it's like, I know this one person as the real estate attorney. They are, in my mind, the real estate attorney for like small investors. So to be repeatable in that way is super important. So they have done it themselves, as well as anybody who's talking about the brand, their messaging. When I say, who do you use for email marketing? And they say, Kit, ConvertKit. Like, it's really clunky for users. And this is not a reflection on the product. My understanding is that being a Kit user is great. Everybody that I know that uses Kit loves it. But the rebrand is what we're focusing on. And it feels like it's halfway done. So like you said, are they about to launch something else? Or are they just making sure that we all know that it's still Kit? Because unlike, like, for example, Tropicana rebranded a couple years ago, you still know it's Tropicana. There's still an orange there. It's just like a really goofy, like, font. And that's like really all they changed. They didn't change the recipe. They didn't change the shape of the container. They didn't do anything else. They just like got a new logo and called it good. Whereas Kit, because it's all new fonts, it's mostly new colors. We still have this like cream. And the messaging is still that it's an email first provider for creatives. But if we were to land on this page having been looking for ConvertKit and it only said Kit, we would have been super lost. So there's like very little liaison here between Kit and ConvertKit. So they still have to call themselves ConvertKit on their homepage, which just seems silly to me.
So that's a great segue. So is this one a pass or a smash for you? And you can give us like a little bit of context why we don't have to do it super rapid fire.
For me, it's a pass. I think it's silly. I think it's made it really clunky to talk about what ConvertKit is.
Yeah. So for me, I want it to be a smash so bad because I think they're like killing it with their new visuals. But I have to say pass for kind of the same reason. First and foremost, I said this already, I hate the new name. Like, I even posted a thread the other day and was like, I refuse to call it Kit. I'm still going to call it ConvertKit. I think if they had refreshed their visuals and done everything and messaging even the same as they've done and just not changed their name, it would have been like they would have knocked it out of the park. But I think that they've made it overly confusing and you're kind of like not sure where they're going. Like you said, it feels like we're in the middle of the story and I don't love that. But visually, I think they nailed it. I like this new look much better than what they had before. All right. Next up, we have got Dubsado. So I know you and I are both pretty loyal Dubsado users. They have been in business about 9-ish years, did not change their business name, just kind of did a little visual refresh, changed some of their messaging. Their goal with the rebrand was that they wanted something that, and this is a direct quote, communicates their expertise, empathy, and excitement of what's possible when you run your business with intention. I also want to point out that with this rebrand, they made a point not to increase their pricing, which if you're in the online world, I'm sure a few months ago you heard lots of chatter about HoneyBook increasing their pricing fairly significantly. We're going to talk about the price increase thing with another brand.
Right. Yeah. And that's their number one competitor in the like small business online space. So as I had mentioned before, yes, of course, there are larger CRMs. Again, Salesforce and HubSpot would both cover that as well. Like what we don't have a lot of in the online space is like a really true all-encompassing product. And I know that there's a lot of like people who will say that they're using an all-in-one platform, and to them, I give them like a solid thumbs up. I've tried it and it hasn't worked for me or a lot of the people that I know. So I think that like it is interesting that like they're still competing specifically in this like micro business space.
Yeah, and there's another company called 17 Hats that I used in 2016 whenever I first started that does kind of the same thing. and I haven't used them in a long time, so like no shade to 17 Hats, but I haven't heard of really anyone else using them. I would say in the like online entrepreneur space, Dubsado and Honeybook are pretty much your two options. Like they're very direct competitors.
Yeah. There's she's at justcreatives.com. Have you participated, Morgan? She does an online state of online business every year. And she recently released, so she interviewed or surveyed over 500 small business owners, most of whom are earning less than $250,000 a year top line in their business. And of those people, the only CRM platform that was used more than Dubsado that was named was I Don't Use One at 29%. Dubsado being the highest at 28%, so 28 down to 14% for Honeybook users. So for those who took the survey, it's not indicative of all, but we can assume that Dubsado is the largest in the space, just for the sake of numbers.
Yeah, and I know Honeybook was initially started gearing specifically towards photographers. I have used Honeybook as a like on the customer side, and I think it's pretty solid. Like, but we're going to talk about Dubsado's rebrand. So let's look at the before. Okay, so visually we've got this like basically green and white theme with a few other little pops of color. Manage your clients, automate your work, grow your business, and then it very clearly says use Dubsado to sign contracts, collect payments, send custom forms, and get your time back with powerful workflows all in one place. And they've got a start for free button. I would say it's a good blend of like techie and also like a little bit organic and kind of accessible feeling. One platform, all the tools you need. Then we've got a list of all the features. We've got a platform with you in mind, and then it shows us all the different types of businesses that Dubsado could be good for, and then we jump into talking about pricing. So what are your thoughts on Dubsado V1?
I mean, I joined Dubsado V1. I feel like from a sales perspective, it worked on me. Something that they do really, really well is it's a very clean experience in a lot of ways, like sans serif fonts, 2 calls to action above the fold, but in a way visually, because one is like filled in and the other one looks like it's kind of grayscaled, that one is the primary call to action. It's clear that that's where they want you to go, but you can also like, it's kind of this like arbitrary, like view demo if you're not sold on it yet. Like in my mind, there was nothing wrong with the original. And as a user, I like logged into Dubsado one day and was like, this is different, but nothing on the back end is different. It's like for me, and from a sales facing perspective or a login facing perspective, they just like kind of changed the colors and fonts and moved on. They also had like single sales page. The rest of the website, like anything behind the website, was just blogs and like customer support, I believe.
Yeah. Yep. So, I mean, same thing. It sold me. I think one thing that they really nail is the simplicity. Like you said, when I started my online business, and I'm sure this is the same for you, there are so many things that you have to figure out how you're going to do, like setting up your systems and stuff. It is transparently like a year and a half, 2 years ago, I was like freshly postpartum and having crazy hormones and was like, I should switch to Honeybook. So I started a free account, started trying to set it up, and I was like, this is so confusing. I don't understand how to do anything in here. And very quickly that idea went out the window. So I think that something that feels hard for a lot of people, they have done a good job to at least make it seem like it's going to be easy on their sales page. I also think that they do a great job in this initial iteration of just being really clear and to the point about here's what this will do for you. You will be able to sign contracts, collect payments, build forms. And you should care about that because you get your time back.
Yes.
So I think this is a situation where it wasn't broken to begin with, but I also understand, hey, we've had this like look and messaging for almost a decade. We need something fresh to catch.
Yeah.
So let's look at what they moved to.
And also to note, as we like shift to this new one, is that they said to grow your business. There was no real niche, which I think was almost their specialty.
Yeah.
Because
they even get into that lower down the page where they're like coaches, photographers, designers, yada, yada. And they have a little scrolling bar of like all the different types of businesses that this could work for, which I thought was great, especially, and hopefully they did this on purpose, knowing that Honeybook was initially geared towards specifically photographers. so that you or I could go on there and say, oh, there's a copywriter who uses this. There's a designer who uses this. There's a fitness trainer who uses this, and really actually see firsthand how it could work for any type of business. So our new brand, we've cleaned things up a little. We've still got a similar kind of like green, navy, white feel, but now we've got some more pops of color. So like calls to action are now hot pink. Logo has been redesigned and simplified a little bit. We've got a little bit more of a creative serif type font. There's some fun animations and some like cute little illustrations on the homepage. And I think I will let you speak to messaging, but I feel like they are saying more on this page than they were previously. So I will let you.
Yeah, I agree. I think, they say a photo is worth 1,000 words. I think a testimonial is worth 10,000 words. And like you said on the original one, there was a lot of visual where you could look and say, oh, a copywriter uses this. Oh, like you can really fill in the blanks of who would use it. There's definitely a lot more words. Something I think they do really well is showing a like pretty solid spectrum of like people who use it. But one thing they changed above the fold in the original header was it now says software for creative service businesses. So before it was saying what the business did. It was manage your clients, automate your work, grow your business. So I'm immediately telling myself a story here of like, I have clients that need managing. Oh, and I can automate it. And like, as a result, my business is going to grow. Now the header says software for creative service businesses. So it's telling me what it is, but nothing about the result that it's going to give me. So while I think the bulk of the rest of this site from a copy perspective is really positive, I'm let down by this heading because it really seems like it's just selling me the service, because we also took away the second call to action where we can view a demo. Now it's just start for free. So it's the same call to action. And I can tell you from a user perspective, nothing's changed in the back end, but I feel like I am far less attached right out of the gate when I first land on this page than I was to the original Dubsado.
That's so interesting that you say that, and we'll get to our final pass or smash on this one here in a second. But I think the visuals are awesome. Like, I think whoever was the creative director behind this did an amazing job. It's funny though, because my first glance at this above the fold section, I was like, oh, it's great that now it says for creative service businesses. So you can kind of self-identify and say, okay, I'm a product business, so this isn't going to work for me. And then as you started talking and pointing out some of those things, I was like, yeah, well, like what software? Software doesn't really tell me anything. So I think while I like that they've kind of made their niche a little more clear, so it's not just for any business owner, because it's not. Dubsado doesn't work for any business. It really is geared towards, like they say, creative service providers, which is a bulk of who you and I both work with. Maybe they took it a step a little too far. Like maybe they could have found a happy medium between old and the new.
Yeah. And there's a lot that we don't know. Is this a super Googled term and they're getting most of their clients and their future strategy is SEO? So people are searching software for creative service businesses. But also, like, do I need a client management software or do I need a bookkeeping software? You know, like that, should I be on QuickBooks or Dubsado? Like those two don't do anything nearly the same. So you're right with like the what software. But yeah, like we don't know anything. We don't have any context about like what their strategy is for client acquisition. Because I believe that I came through a referral. I'm sure somebody got an affiliate bonus for me signing up.
Yep. Yeah, no, I did 100% for sure. And they do a great job of kind of showing you what you're going to get. I wish that they would also just more plainly tell me. And I know I say this all the time in 5-minute brand audits. I'm sure you tell people in copy on demand all the time. And whenever you've opened up for like public audits and stuff, get to the point quickly. Like, I do not want to have to scroll to the bottom of your sales page to know what you're selling. And so I think maybe that's a little bit of a miss here. I don't know. I think the days of like the long scroll sales page are kind of gone. And I feel like while it's great that they have a ton of testimonials and a lot of information, it's a little too much for me. So, final answer, is this one a pass or a smash for you?
It's only because I am such a stan for a good above the fold. Like, I want to know without having to scroll what this is, what it does, and why I should want it. It's a pass.
Are you ready to put your foot on the gas and grow your business to six figures? It all starts with a solid strategic brand foundation. Join the Six Figure Brand Society today. It's the only place where you can get one-on-one support from a branding expert for under $200 a month. Head to sixfigurebrandsociety.com or use the link in the show notes to watch our free training, where you'll get a sneak peek of what's included in the membership and how my team and I can help support you in building your profitable and sustainable six-figure brand. I'm gonna give Dubsado some credit and say it's a smash for me. I do think that there are some messaging things that could be better, but if my question is it an overall improvement from what they had before? I think it's a yeah. Right. Our third pass or smash online business rebrand is going to be Kajabi. I am excited to talk about this one. So, Kajabi, for those of you who don't know, they call themselves an all-in-one platform, which Sam was talking about earlier. Of a lot of people call themselves that. Few of them really are that. So they can host your website. They can host your course and membership. They have a new podcast feature. They do email marketing. They're very, very, very robust. If you want to know all the nitty gritty, you can just go to kajabi.com and check it out for yourself. But they recently did a visual only rebrand, name change, nothing like that. But theirs, out of the ones that we were looking at today, was definitely the biggest 180 visually. Some of kind of what they said about their rebrand was that they are blazing new trails and they want their new look to feel more raw and more authentic. I also want to note, we talked with Dubsado about how they did not increase their pricing. Kajabi initially did not increase their pricing, and I don't think that their actual prices of their plans have changed. However, they have in the last couple of weeks rolled out some changes to their affiliate program and things like that that a lot of Kajabi users are not super happy about. So TBD on how that all shakes out. But let's take a peek. Okay, so Kajabi iteration 1, I don't know if this is actually the first version of Kajabi, but previous version, we are blue, white, and black. Very standard techie. If I could not read English, I would have no way to tell if this is Kajabi or Dropbox or the new version of Kit, even quite generic visually, I would say. Similar to Kit, there's a big, big focus on creators on this page, which is great. Their headline is the best place for creators to make money. And then it's got a rotator where it switches out creators, YouTubers, coaches, etc. And we've got some stats of why they're so amazing, how much money they've helped people make. Then it talks about all the things they do: courses, memberships, podcasts, community, coaching. There's some green and yellow accent colors, some screenshots of inside the platform. But it's not very text heavy. It's extremely, extremely visual. And they are very focused on money. This sales page talks about money a ton. So take it away, Sam.
Yeah. I personally really like the previous version. So as it says, the best place for musicians, coaches, et cetera, to make money. What I like about this, and you can tell me what you think with color theory, because I know you're so well versed in that, but the bright blue color, that, and there's kind of a lime green color that you just kind of associate with bros, tech bro, buy my course, if I found out that the Tinder Swindler's old coaching website were these colors, I wouldn't be surprised. Very much follows Russell Brunson, has the single scroll templated sales page with the VSL at the top. That's what those colors are really highly associated with for me. However, from a copy perspective and a messaging perspective, I've never actually used Kajabi for my own business, but when I work with people who are on Kajabi, it's always building their course, building things that lead directly into a funnel so that they can make money. And I think that there's a lot of benefit to being really transparent about that. We're in business for a lot of reasons, but businesses make money. So we're in business to change the world. We're in business to create a better life for ourselves, for our clients, for our families. Yes. you need to make money to be able to do that. And the transparency here really aligns well with like the sans serif all caps font, the colors. Like for me, this feels like a very aligned brand. And that Kajabi K, I could spot that from a mile away, which like we didn't really talk about the logo too much on Dibsado, but because I'm a Dibsado user, I could spot the previous logo a mile away, but I think the new one's a lot cleaner. Kajabi's previous copy, I think, is very well aligned with like the previous visual as well, in my opinion.
So I always thought that I hated the Kajabi logo until they changed it. But before we get into the new stuff, I agree with most of what you're saying, especially the like these colors and the kind of the style is very like tech bro-y, which I don't think I'm a tech bro, and I use Kajabi. I have my membership on there, and I like it a lot. It was the best solution for what I was trying to do, and it is transparently a little spendy, but I haven't found anything that I think replaces it. So I guess that's points for Kajabi. I don't love their old visuals. I don't say this very often, but it's a little too plain for me. Like on this above the fold section, there is basically only white and blue. And it's hard for me to know where I'm supposed to look at first. I just don't love it. I do like I think the bottom half of the page is fine. Just the top half of the page feels very amateur to me. They're all these people that they're showing us, like they're influencers and creators and stuff, are not amateurs. Like I don't know some of these people, but 251,000 followers, built a $4 million business using Kajabi. Those are not amateur numbers. So I think it would have done them good to elevate this just a little bit. Now, let's look at the new version. So it's not a huge departure as far as like we're still using a mix of serif and sans serif fonts. We still have a huge emphasis on creators. We've still got like some homepage animation going on. It's a lot of black and white, but we have now lost the blue and our primary color is red. And then we've switched to this like weird ribbon-y looking K for Kajabi. Also, this is nitpicky of me, but the logo is getting cut off in this top section, which is kind of a rookie mistake. And I think our messaging, I'll let you talk more about this, but is more aggressive, which does fit with, they had said whenever they launched this, they're trying to blaze new trails. So I think as far as that goes, they're doing it. What do you think?
I think like the previous alignment with like you're going to make money and also understanding that it is a spendier platform is like takes money to make money. Like they were really unapologetic about that. So when you say that this one feels more aggressive, I don't disagree, but I also don't agree. Like I just don't see the like aggressive side. What I see is it's more inclusive in the copy. Like we see above the fold, it says like all in one place. Everything creators need to build the business of their dreams. Like it seems to touch a little bit more on like businesses of all sizes. I think it even says that further down the page. The other thing I notice is that there's a lower barrier to entry. They're getting your email right away without any sort of commitment. There's a place to put that email address in versus before you would have clicked through and ended up on like a secondary landing page that then you went and signed up. So they're lowering the barrier to entry. And that's where I feel that this one, while it is still a lot of the same images of people, the same success stories, I think there's a little bit more language that includes entry-level individuals and understanding that kind of they're all going to be spending the same amount to get integrated into the platform. So I think this one, while visually is a big departure, I think copy-wise, I'm seeing it as like a really positive thing where there's still very similar messaging. It just kind of like, you hear lift as you climb. I think it's reaching down in a positive way.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And I think too, it's when we see all these creators on here who are, millionaires and somebody's like, I just started my business 6 weeks ago, like, they do a good job of making it feel aspirational rather than making you feel like, oh, I could never do that. I'm not good enough to use the software. So that's great. Visually, I'm really on the fence. Before we started talking about this, in full transparency, I was like, I hate this. I hate everything about it. And now that I'm like looking at it more and we're kind of talking through it, I'm getting a little more on board. I will say that that logo is just god awful. There's no selling me on the logo. It's terrible.
Yeah, I can't get behind the icon. I'll agree. Like I said, I could recognize that old Kajabi K from anywhere. And it also seems red where the rest of the page kind of seems like a salmon color, but I don't know.
My problem with the K is that it doesn't, on its own, if it's not next to the word Kajabi, it really doesn't look like a K. It kind of looks like an R or an N to me. I think that the old K would have fit with these new visuals like really well. Like it matched fine. I do want to give them points for doing something other than blue. I talked about this with the previous version of that. It just looks like everything else. If I open my phone, I have like an app folder for like business apps, and I frequently open the wrong app because their icons are all so similar and they're all blue.
Yes. Yeah. And I don't think we have time to get into too many others, but that's kind of an ongoing joke with like the Calm app and the Canva app is that they're like, haha, we look exactly the same. And it's like, yeah, you're right. Facebook is blue. Yeah. Like most of my business apps are blue. I use Schwab and Chase and US Bank, and then I've got Venmo. Those are all blue. Yeah. Zoom is blue in the business world.
Yeah. Yep. Well, props for doing something different. I don't even really mind the red. That logo kills the whole thing for me. But as we get further down the page, they incorporate some other colors. I do like that they're actually using like a lot of black and like doing a good job of drawing my eye where it needs to go. So yeah, I'm gonna change my mind on this one. I was gonna say like hard pass, but I think I will give this one a smash and just cross my fingers that they refresh that logo sooner than later.
Yeah, from my side, it's also a smash. I think this was a well done. Well done, and they've liaised between the previous brand and the current brand really well.
Yeah, I think so. You don't wonder if it's the same company, which I think is important. So real quick, last one, we don't really need to go through like their whole rebrand, but there's one point that I want to make because you mentioned the Calm and Canva app, and they did do a little bit of a brand refresh, but really it was more of a product refresh where they added a lot of new AI features. They changed their interface to focus more on teams. I think they're really trying to corner the remote work market of teams that are not in the same location, and how can we make it easy for them to work together, and also trying to compete with some of the more quote professional design apps like Adobe. But the point that I really wanted to make here was when they rolled all of that out, then they announced a very significant price increase, and there was a lot of, I'm going to call it outrage on the internet over it. From a non-designer perspective, can you give me a little behind the scenes of what was that like for you to find out about as a business owner who relies on Canva to market their business?
Yeah, you are correct. And there's like the decision for me to use Canva Pro and start paying for it was not necessarily an easy yes. It just kind of came from like wanting more of the images, and like when I build out slide decks for webinars, like if I look through my Canva library, my recent designs are webinars, trainings, and then occasionally Instagram posts or like a LinkedIn profile thing, which I can do all of that really well. And I have access to tons of templates on the free program. The big change for me was I can upload my brand into there, and then it automatically just like knows my fonts and colors, and that's super easy. So all of the AI features and this, that, the other are not a major selling point for me. And I think that's true for a lot of people. Like we're using Canva because we're not trained in all of the other stuff. So to then give me all of these things that I don't necessarily need, to me really just felt annoying. It's kind of like, if you've ever had somebody like come to your house and be like, we brought you all of these casseroles, and you're like, I'm literally trying to diet, like that's how it felt, was just, what am I paying for? Like, am I supposed to say thank you?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. And I really wish that it would have like just make it a second tier and say, if you want all this extra AI stuff, then pay us an extra $20 a month. think the other problem was it was not a small price increase. It was like double and triple for some people. And if you somehow missed this on the internet, people were pissed. It was a big deal. A few weeks later, they came back and they were like, just kidding. And they pretty much, they didn't completely roll
Came down to like how many licenses each business had or something like that.
They pretty much canceled it. So while I think it was, to be frank, very tactless of them in the first place, I do want to give them some props for listening to feedback and course correcting. I know that's something we've talked about a lot in this episode. So I just think that was a really, really great real-time example that they saved themselves from losing a lot of customers by doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the takeaway for all of the brands that we've discussed and all the brands that you and I have worked on is like, when you first move into a rebrand, the first thing your designer and copywriter are going to ask is something about like, how do you want people to feel? What is the goal here? And branding is about so much more than a logo and the words that you're using. Like those are all really important elements of it. But ultimately, do I trust Canva right now? Like, am I secretly checking to see kind of like Netflix? Doesn't Netflix cost like $20 a month now? It used to cost $7.99. Every time you turn around, you're getting this like price increase. So it's like, I now have to watch and like, I don't feel like I have brand trust with Canva, with these other brands. Cause it's like, okay, I'm just waiting for the shoe to drop on like, okay, so if Honeybook raised their prices and Dubsado just rebranded, when's it going to happen?
Exactly. And that's also kind of unfortunate too, because like you said, it erodes your trust throughout the industry, even when like Dubsado hasn't done anything to make you think that they're going to be shady, but now it's in the back of your head because somebody else did it.
It's an interesting, branding is so interesting because I don't think that there's like a real true definition that anyone could agree on of like what it means to be a brand.
No, yeah. So all of that to say, there are lots and lots of ways to do a rebrand or a brand refresh. And I think it's important for us smaller business owners to just realize that like even the big dogs are facing all the same hurdles that we are, and they frequently get it wrong, and like it's okay. So I think our big takeaways here are one, first and foremost, like be willing to reassess and course correct when things go wrong. It is okay to make the wrong decision. It is not okay to never rectify that. I think also something we talked about a lot was not sacrificing clarity in your messaging for making something that looks nice. So there was a lot of those rebrands that we looked at that we were like, it looks great, but I don't understand what you do now. Like, you've confused me. And then finally, if you're going to make a change, like switch to a new name or move into a new niche or whatever, just commit. Like, don't have one foot in and one foot out.
Yeah, absolutely. There's nothing that I would add to that list. I think you nailed it.
Perfect. Cool. Well, thanks for hanging out with me, Sam. That was super fun. Tell us how we can connect with you and give us a little shameless plug for Copy on Demand, because I am a Copy on Demand member. And when I tell you it is one of the best investments that I make every year in my business, I am not lying.
I'm so glad that you feel that way. Copy on Demand is, like I had mentioned before, my brain on your copy on a weekly basis, if that's how you choose to use it. So basically, it's on demand so that you can submit copy to me at any time. We're entrepreneurs. Morgan is up in the middle of the night with her infants and maybe occasionally can't sleep and submit something at a really weird hour. Great. That's incredible. Good for you. Every Tuesday, I block my schedule and go through my Copy on Demand submissions for the week and reply in either a Loom or write in your Google document. And my goal with Copy on Demand is to make every person a better copywriter in their business. So when I tell Morgan, this is what you should change, I think the subject line sucks, this is what I would do instead, I'm giving her context on like why I don't think that subject line is going to get opened and what she should do instead, so that next time she writes a subject line, or next time she writes an email, or adds something into her website, or makes a freebie, that every time she has that in the back of her mind so she knows what works, what doesn't, so that she can become a better copywriter in her business. So I was like a really long pitch, but I freaking love Copy on Demand, and it's great, and it's like the best part of every week. So yeah, and it's less than $200 a month for anybody who wants to join, and we'll make sure that the link is in the show notes. But yeah, otherwise you can find me on LinkedIn at Samantha Burmeister, or I'm on Instagram at nomad.copy.
Awesome. Cool. I will make sure all those links are in the notes. Highly, highly recommend connecting with Sam. She will make you a better writer. So see you next time, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to the Six Figure Brand Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please be sure to rate the show and leave a review on whatever app you're listening on. And as a thank you, I'll send you coffee on me. Yes, I'm serious. As a smaller show for now, you taking the time to do this makes a huge impact on how we can reach more people and how I can continue to create this content for free. When you take a screenshot of your review, follow and tag me on Instagram at @SpectandCo. I'll send you a $5 Starbucks gift card. As always, don't forget to check out the show notes for any links or resources I mentioned during the episode. Thanks again for listening, and I'll catch you next week.